Imagine waking up tomorrow and realizing the internet just no longer wants you to click on anything. Like that the primary goal of the largest tech company on earth is to make sure you never actually visit another website ever again.
Right, which is a wild thing to even think about.
It is, but that is the quiet, honestly slightly terrifying reality hidden inside the staggering numbers coming out of Google I/O today. We're talking 900 million users
Mhm.
and 9.7 trillion tokens processed every single month.
I mean, it is just a staggering volume of information. And just to put that into perspective for anyone who, doesn't spend their days reading developer documentation, a token in AI language is roughly 3/4 of a word.
Okay, so
So 9.7 trillion tokens means Google's models are essentially reading, synthesizing, and generating the equivalent of the entire Library of Congress millions of times over, every 30 days.
oh, wow. We're talking about a scale of computation that's genuinely difficult for the human brain to even visualize. Well, welcome to today's deep dive. We are exploring the absolute tectonic plates shifting underneath the tech industry right now, and we're being guided by today's Tech Reader AI Digest, written by Aaron Rose on this Tuesday, May 19th, 2026.
It's a great issue.
It really is. And our mission for you today is simple, but massive. We are unpacking Google I/O 2026 to understand how artificial intelligence is making that leap from like a really cool party trick you play with in a browser tab to the invisible 24/7 infrastructure of your everyday life. Okay, let's unpack this because reading through this digest, it feels like the tech giants aren't even running the same race anymore.
They really aren't. And I think that's the crucial context for everything we're about to discuss today. Aaron Rose points out this massive strategic pivot perfectly in the source. Every major AI lab has basically chosen a different lane.
Right.
You have Anthropic, and they are aggressively running the race on safety and enterprise adoption. You have OpenAI racing on consumer scale and developer tools. But Google...
Yeah, what's Google's play here?
Google is running a race based entirely on sheer brute force distribution. I mean, they are taking their models and aggressively embedding them into surfaces that a billion people already use every single day.
Right. Which means before we can even talk about what Google's AI actually does now, we need to understand the engine they've built to power that massive distribution. So the digest notes that Gemini 3.5 Flash is now the default model across Google Search globally.
Globally.
And it's also powering the primary Gemini app.
Exactly. And the positioning of Gemini 3.5 Flash is incredibly revealing about Google's overall corporate mindset right now. According to the internal benchmarking that's, circulating in the industry, this model lands roughly in the GPT 5.5 class.
Okay, let's pause there because...
Well, let's be clear. That is a highly capable, exceptionally fast model, but it falls short of Anthropic's unreleased model.
The one known as Mythos, right?
Yes, Mythos, which has essentially reset the frontier standard for what the absolute smartest model actually is.
And Google basically admitted that. I mean, they didn't stand on that I/O stage and claim they had the most intelligent, reasoning-capable model in the world.
What's fascinating here is that they didn't even try to claim frontier leadership. They claimed scale. They claimed integration. They claimed infrastructure.
It's like Google decided not to build the fastest, most expensive Formula One car on the track. Instead, they built a highly reliable Honda Civic and then figured out a way to magically make it appear in a billion driveways overnight.
That is a perfect analogy.
But I have to push back on this strategy for a second. Is conceding the title of smartest model in the room a dangerous long-term move, or is it pure genius? Because if I'm a power user, right, and I know Anthropic's Mythos is fundamentally smarter at coding or complex analysis, why don't I just leave the Google ecosystem?
It's a calculated risk, definitely, but it's a deeply pragmatic one. Because when your distribution advantage is the world's most used search engine, plus Gmail, plus YouTube, plus the entire Android operating system...
It's everywhere.
Right, you don't necessarily need to win the pure intelligence benchmark race. You optimize for the model that runs most efficiently at planetary scale. So, Gemini 3.5 Flash is not Google's smartest model, but it is their most easily deployed model. Winning the frontier race is a point of pride, but winning the distribution race is how you maintain a monopoly. You don't need a Formula One car to drive to the grocery store.
I love that. And speaking of driving to the store, how we actually pay for the gas to run these models is completely changing, which is a big part of the digest. It highlights that the Gemini app is moving away from those flat daily prompt limits for their Plus, Pro, and Ultra subscribers. They are moving to a compute billing model.
Yes, and I really want to emphasize this because this is a massive shift in consumer software.
Cool.
Instead of paying like 20 bucks a month for unlimited access to a chatbot, the system now factors in the complexity of the prompt you submit, the background features you use, and the depth of reasoning required.
Right. I think the best way to explain this to you listening is to imagine the difference between an all-you-can-eat buffet and a taxi meter.
Oh, that's good.
For the last few years, AI has been a buffet. You pay your entry fee, and you can ask it to write a poem or code an entire app, and it costs you the exact same amount. But with this new compute billing model, the moment you ask the AI to do complex math or analyze a giant data set, the taxi meter starts running faster.
Which is exactly where the entire industry is heading. Because when AI stops being a standalone app and becomes underlying infrastructure, it gets metered like infrastructure. You pay for the electricity you use, right?
Exactly.
Well, you will now pay for the thinking your AI does.
Okay, so we have this highly efficient Honda Civic of a model sitting in everyone's driveway, and we are now paying for it by the mile. The next logical step, if you're Google, is figuring out how to make that car drive around and run errands for you while you're fast asleep.
Precisely. This is the shift from the answering machine paradigm to the active partner paradigm.
And that takes us directly into the absolute core of this keynote, which is Gemini Spark. Let's break down exactly what this is, because it's a lot to process. Gemini Spark is a personal AI agent that runs 24/7. But wait, before we go further, the digest specifically mentions it runs on Google Cloud virtual machines using the anti-gravity developer harness.
Right, the anti-gravity harness.
Let's translate that for the listener. What is an anti-gravity developer harness, and why isn't this just running locally on my phone?
That's a great question. So if you have an AI agent doing complex multi-step tasks continuously, it would drain your smartphone's battery in about 45 minutes.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it would literally melt the processor. So Google created the anti-gravity harness. Think of it as a highly secure private digital sandbox located on Google's massive cloud servers.
Okay, got it.
Your personal AI lives in that sandbox. It's completely isolated from the rest of the web for security, but it has a direct, authenticated pipeline to your specific digital life, your emails, your calendar, your documents.
So it's basically a remote-controlled brain that never sleeps.
Exactly.
And what it's doing in that sandbox is executing multi-step tasks that are deeply integrated into Google Workspace. And this summer, the digest notes they're adding MCP support. Again, let's decode that acronym. What is MCP, and why does my AI need it?
So MCP stands for Model Context Protocol. It's an open standard that basically acts like a universal translator or like a universal USB port for AI.
Okay.
Right now, your Google AI is great at reading your Google Docs, but with MCP, developers of other apps can plug right in. So your Gemini Spark agent will be able to securely reach into your Spotify, your Notion workspace, your Slack channels, or even your bank app, and pull context from them to complete a task.
Okay, so combining all that, the cloud sandbox, the multi-step reasoning, the MCP integrations, let's put the listener in a real-world scenario. Imagine your daily routine.
Yeah, let's visualize it.
Instead of waking up, opening your laptop, and staring at 40 unread email threads, your Gemini Spark agent has been awake all night. It read the threads, drafted 3 replies for your approval, updated a spreadsheet based on an attachment, and highlighted the one actual fire you need to put out before your first meeting.
Exactly. Instead of just generating text, the model acts as a reasoning engine. It writes out a plan, uses a tool to execute step 1, evaluates if it worked, and then moves to step 2. It's not just answering questions anymore. It is iterating and acting on your behalf.
And people are going to pay for that level of delegation.
They are. And to make this accessible, Google actually restructured the pricing. The top-tier Ultra subscription dropped from $250 down to $200, and they introduced a new entry tier at $100 a month.
Which is still a lot of money, but if it's literally replacing hours of administrative busy work, it's essentially the cheapest virtual assistant on the planet.
Exactly.
And they aren't stopping at Workspace. They are applying this exact same continuous agent logic to Google Search itself. Aaron Rose calls this the biggest upgrade to search in 25 years.
Because it fundamentally changes what a search actually is?
Right. The traditional search box is gone. It expands dynamically as you type. You can throw anything at it, like text, images, PDF files, video, even whole Chrome tabs. But the wild part is the new search agents.
Yeah, the background processes.
Right. These run continuously. You can tell search, monitor, property listings in this zip code that match these 3 highly specific criteria and track stock movements for these 5 companies. And it just does it. forever until you tell it to stop.
And people are using it. AI mode in search has already surpassed 1 billion monthly users globally.
A billion.
A billion. And the queries are doubling every single quarter. This isn't a beta test anymore. It's fully deployed reality.
Okay, but this is where I have to pause and ask a serious question about reality. Because looking at all this, I feel a deep sense of unease. So, I'm supposed to trust an autonomous agent running on a remote cloud server to read my private Gmail, execute tasks on my behalf, negotiate with other apps, and monitor my life 24/7.
It's a big ask.
It is. And according to the digest, the way I keep tabs on this invisible worker is through a new Android Halo interface layer. What exactly is Android Halo, and are we really ready to hand over the keys to the kingdom just to avoid checking our own email?
The Android Halo is a really clever piece of UI design. It's essentially a persistent, subtle, glowing ring that surrounds the punch-hole camera on the front of your Android phone screen.
Oh,
It pulses or changes colors to let you know what your background agent is doing, like whether it's actively reading something, executing a task, or waiting for your approval. It's designed to give you a sense of ambient awareness.
ambient awareness, okay.
But to answer your bigger question, like, are we ready for this? It's a very fair hesitation. But consider it from a historical perspective. People had the exact same anxiety about putting their credit cards on the internet in the late 90s or letting a smartphone track their GPS location a decade later.
That's true.
The convenience curve almost always wins out over the privacy anxiety in the aggregate. What Google is betting their entire infrastructure on is that once you experience the sheer leverage of having an active partner doing your digital busy work, the idea of going back to manually parsing through emails or refreshing real estate listings will feel as antiquated as churning your own butter.
That is a powerful point. But here is the physical bottleneck in that entire plan. If these agents are truly running all the time, constantly gathering information and executing tasks for you, checking your phone screen to interact with them, even with that glowing Android Halo, suddenly feels really clunky.
It does.
If the intelligence is ambient, the interface has to become ambient too. How do I talk to my cloud agent without constantly pulling a glass rectangle out of my pocket?
And this is where we see Google's hardware strategy align perfectly with their software strategy. The interface itself needs to become invisible.
Which brings us to the hardware announcement that finally proves Google learned a massive lesson from the past. The Android XR audio glasses,
Yes.
dropping this fall. They are partnering with Samsung for the tech, but more importantly, they are partnering with Gentle Monster and Warby Parker for the design.
That partnership detail is absolutely everything.
It's a very shrewd pivot from the Google Glass disaster over a decade ago. They've realized that the primary barrier to wearable tech isn't just software capability, it's social friction and vanity.
Yeah, no one wants to look ridiculous.
Exactly. If you want people to wear a computer on their face, it has to look like something you'd actually buy at a boutique, not a plastic prop from a sci-fi convention.
Exactly. And the technical constraints actually work in their favor here. The digest notes there's no visual display yet. That's apparently a second tier currently in development. Right now, it is purely private audio delivered straight into your ear using directional speakers.
So why audio first? Why not wait until the holograms are ready?
Because of battery life, heat dissipation, and most importantly, social acceptance. If the AI is an omnipresent background agent, your interface with it needs to be omnipresent and frictionless. Audio allows for that continuous connection.
That makes sense.
You don't have the social friction of staring at a screen or wearing a bulky headset while trying to maintain eye contact with someone. It makes the technology feel like a natural extension of your own thoughts.
I want you, the listener, to just imagine this for a second. You're walking down the street this fall, holding a coffee. You don't have to pull your phone out. You don't have to break your stride. Your stylish Warby Parker sunglasses quietly whisper into your ear a perfect, concise summary of a massive 60-page work document that your Gemini Spark agent just finished analyzing for you on a cloud server.
It's wild to picture.
Right. You just nod, whisper a quick command to forward it to your boss, and keep walking.
It fundamentally alters your relationship with information. But there is another layer to this ambient computing strategy that is buried in the quick hits section of Aaron's Digest, and it is a massive corporate flex. It involves Apple.
Ah, yes, the Apple Alliance.
Google confirmed at I/O that Gemini will actually power a new, personalized version of Apple Siri launching later in 2026.
Which is incredible corporate maneuvering.
It is a Trojan horse strategy. This deeply complicates Apple's existing legal and corporate tensions with OpenAI. As we head into Apple's WWDC event in June, the rift between Apple and OpenAI is only going to become more apparent.
Yeah.
Google is perfectly positioned to slip right in and become the default intelligence engine, not just for Android, but for the entire Apple ecosystem as well. They're securing their distribution monopoly on every piece of glass and every pair of glasses on Earth.
Okay, we've talked about how incredibly convenient all of this is, but we have to pivot to the dark side of this equation. If our glasses and our cloud agents are perfectly summarizing all the information in the world for us, what happens to the human beings who are actually creating that information?
This is the existential crisis of the open web, and it's the core tension of Aaron Rose's third story in the digest.
Right. Well, let's look at the mechanics of this. AI mode in search has surpassed 1 billion monthly users across nearly 200 countries. And these new search agents aren't just providing you with a list of blue links to click on so you can read an article. They are synthesizing actual answers right there in the search box. It's what the industry calls a zero-click search.
And here we have the fundamental economic conflict of our time. We need to look at both sides of this impartially, based solely on the source text. Google's defense is that overall search queries are currently at an all-time high. Their argument is that integrating AI makes search so useful that it leads to more searching overall, which ultimately creates a larger pie of engagement that everyone will eventually benefit from.
But the publishers, the bloggers, the independent content creators, they are terrified, and they have a very compelling counter-argument. They're pointing out that more searching does not automatically equal more clicking.
Exactly.
Let's say you're looking for a specific sourdough bread recipe. You ask Google. The AI agent reads 5 different food logs, extracts the best measurements and baking times, and synthesizes the perfect recipe right there on your results page. You get your bread, but you never click through to the food blog.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the internet itself isn't dying, but the distribution pipes that keep it alive are being completely rewired in real time. For 2 decades, the economic model of the open web was based on organic search traffic. You write an article, Google indexes it, people search for the topic, click your link, and you monetize their attention through ads, affiliate links, or subscriptions.
Which brings up a really sharp point that you, listening to this, really have to chew on.
Yeah.
Aaron Rose concludes his digest by saying that writers will survive this massive shift if their content is highly specific, meticulously sourced, and built to last.
Yeah.
But let's look at Aaron Rose himself. He runs tech-reader.blog. He openly states that Google search is his primary discovery channel. If no one needs to click through to his blog anymore because their Warby Parker glasses just whispered the perfect summary of his latest article into their ear, how does Aaron get paid?
It is the ultimate Ouroboros, the snake eating its own tail. The AI models fundamentally require high-quality, human-generated content to synthesize accurate answers. They cannot train on their own outputs without degrading.
Right, the model collapses.
Exactly. But by synthesizing those answers so perfectly and keeping users on the front page, the AI destroys the economic incentive for humans to create that high-quality content in the first place.
Yeah.
The publishers who have been coasting on generic SEO-optimized articles are already being wiped out. But even the high-quality creators like Aaron Rose are facing a terrifying transition period where the old economic model of the internet is breaking faster than a new one can be built.
It's a structural event for human knowledge, not just a product launch. Okay, let's take a breath and recap this journey because we have covered massive ground today in this deep dive.
We really have.
We started with the engine, Gemini 3.5 Flash. We explored how Google embraced the strategy of good enough intelligence combined with brute force scale, transitioning us into a new utility-style compute billing model where we pay for AI like a taxi meter.
Right, and we then explored how that engine powers Gemini Stark, moving AI from a passive answer machine to an active 24/7 cloud agent living in a secure anti-gravity sandbox, executing multi-step tasks in the background of our lives.
And we looked at how that continuous intelligence is escaping the friction of the phone screen through stylish Android XR audio glasses made with fashion brands like Gentle Monster, while Google simultaneously flanks OpenAI by integrating Gemini into Apple's personalized Siri.
And finally, we examined the profound fallout of all this frictionless convenience, a fundamental rewiring of the open web's economy, where AI synthesizes answers instead of providing links, creating an existential threat to the very creators who produce the information the AI relies on.
So what does this all mean?
Well, we've spent this entire deep dive talking about how these AI agents will synthesize information for you, read your emails, and do your administrative busy work. But I want you to consider a completely different angle as we wrap up. Think about what happens to human communication when your 24/7 Gemini agent starts interacting directly with my 24/7 agent.
Oh man, I hadn't even thought of that loop.
Right. If your agent is analyzing your calendar and negotiating a meeting time, arguing over a specific contract detail, or scheduling an event directly with my agent in the background on some remote cloud server without either of us ever looking at a screen or typing a word.
Wow.
If the AI is doing all the talking, all the negotiating, and all the logistics in the background, what exactly is left for us to say to each other when we finally meet face to face?
That is a wild thought to leave on. Do we just stop communicating the small stuff entirely? Do
Yeah.
we lose the friction that actually makes up most of human interaction? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive today. Keep questioning the information around you. Pay attention to how the invisible pipes of your daily life are being rewired, and we will catch you next time.